Take a breath together. The thing that we all share, breath. So before I launch into the body remembers, happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to every human being, regardless of your gender or gender identity, who has ever stood in the role of being a father. There's a biology to fatherhood, and then there's a reality to fatherhood. And sometimes the biological contributor is not the one who fathers. They are the ones who seed. Just in all transparency, this is a tender day for me because my son is no longer in physical form. And for those of us that, it was a tricky thing. It was like my human brain kind of did this dance of, am I still a father without my kid? Because words are funny that way. And I am, and I will be, and so are you. And we don't get over things. We move on with them. Anybody who tells you to just get over something doesn't understand what's actually happening. I also want to say happy Juneteenth. And for those of you who do not know about Juneteenth, here's the deal. On January 1, 1862, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed into law. And as states became aware that enslaved people were free, some people freed the people that they had held as property. Others relocated to the state of Texas because the state of Texas was not enforcing the Emancipation Proclamation. It was not until June 19th, 1865, that a general arrived in Texas and pretty much forced the issue. And so that's why Juneteenth is celebrated, because, that's 18 months after they were freed, they were finally freed. Now, I invite you, I see all of me wants to say we have to ask ourselves, but we don't, because lots of people won't. But I invite you to ask yourself, what was operating in consciousness that people were willing to relocate their home, their lives, simply to continue to own human beings? And what was operating in our consciousness that was allowed? And more poignantly, what has been operating in our consciousness that it took until 1 year ago today to make Juneteenth a nationally recognized holiday? I'm just saying, we might have some collective stuff that we're working through. Don't make us bad folks, but we have some things to shift. Now, that said, awkwardly enough, it leads into our talk, the body remembers. But what is the body that's doing the remembering? And does the biological body have memory? Yes, it does. Our cells replicate themselves, and they do it quite naturally and quite perfectly. But I'll bet most of us, when we think about remembering and the body, we're thinking about experience. And experience is established by what we tell ourselves about a situation or event. And we know that because you can have 10 people experience exactly the same event, and every one of them has a different experience. Every one of them has a different memory. If you have siblings, you know this to be true because you all grew up in the same household, encountering the same events, but when you talk to each other, don't you sometimes have that feeling of what household did you grow up in? Right? Because their version of things that happened doesn't even relate to yours because we're all filtering it through our filters. Or are we? See, that's what most of us believe. Most of us believe that we're assigning stuff. But in this thing of collective consciousness, we're assigning meaning based on stuff we've been taught that we have never, ever examined, that we've never, ever questioned. And so am I really creating my experience? Or are people 100 years ago creating my experience because I'm living under that delusional thinking of this is just how it's always been? And so we accept that and we apply that to every new circumstance and situation, therefore replicating and making it true that this is how it's always been. And this is how it's always going to be, because for whatever reason, we're not having a new experience of now. So there's a couple of things that we can do. I invite you to consider living the innocence of perpetual curiosity of a 3-year-old. Right? Has anybody ever experienced a 3-year-old getting tired of asking why? No. They don't ever get frustrated. They don't ever get tired. And it doesn't matter how many different answers you give them. Their next question is what? Why? They get it. We are infinite possibility in form, and perhaps all of this human conditioning that the one body, that the collective body is remembering has turned off our curiosity switch. I was having an after conversation with a couple of folks from Colombia this morning, and one of the things that came up is I get tired of looking at my stuff. I get tired of asking why. And what came to me in that moment is why do we get tired? Because somebody taught us there has to be a right answer. And we have to find it in order to get the reward. We've all been conditioned on the reward-punishment paradigm. Every one of us. That it captures our attention. Right? That's why we do everything we do until we wake up to that delusion and go, I'm not playing this game anymore. When we understand that we are the divine in form, this whole concept of qualifying, of getting a reward, of being enough goes right out the window. Because you can't be more than the infinite. How do you qualify above that? I don't know. Right? When I get that I am a one-of-a-kind, intentional, on purpose desire in the mind of Creator itself to experience itself as this thing I call my life, I don't need to qualify for nothing. I just need to be about the business of showing God a good time. That's my job. It's here to expand its experience of itself. If I continue to do the same thing everybody else has always done for generations, I fail at giving God a new experience of itself, which is really what I'm here to do. And so will we dare to navigate the discomfort? And trust me when I tell you, there is discomfort unraveling this reward-punishment paradigm, because we are generationally conditioned. Our bodies remember this paradigm, right? And when you step out of it, when everything in there is screaming, you have to do it this way, and you go, nope, going over here, anxiety happens. And we start, it's like, I don't know about here. I know there's ice here, but like back east, there's lots more ice in the wintertime. You ever had those moments where you slip on the ice? You know intellectually you are the only one there within 5 miles, but you look to see who saw you fall? Right? That's how deep this reward-punishment paradigm is. We look to see who noticed so we know how to behave. What if you stop giving a rat's rear end who's noticing? And you just be about the business of being you. As we say in my community of origins, just do you, boo. Just do you. Everybody else is taken anyway. Right? If I try to be Deborah, it's not going to work well. If Deborah tries to be me, not going to work well. Okay? You, and I'll keep repeating this, you are an intentional, on purpose, one of a kind, never to be repeated, divine idea in the mind of the infinite to experience itself as you. You can't be any better than that. You can't be any more precious than that. Within each and every one of us is the full authority, the agency, the power of that. And when we know who we are, we tap into that. And then whether you approve of me or not ceases to matter. Now, yes, it's nice in the human realm to get kudos. But if my sense of self depends on your approval, the situation is way worse than I thought. Way worse. Because if I am living authentically, chances are good, if not guaranteed, somebody not going to approve. Right? Somebody's going to have an issue. Why? Because we're all conditioned. We all remember the reward punishment. There are people who, out of love, will warn you that you're being too authentic, and they will warn you about the perceived punishments that are coming for your authenticity. They're not doing it to try to control you. They're doing it out of this conditioning, and because they love you. They don't want to see you get punished. They don't want to see you be in trouble. And that's how it continues over and over and over. And so, really, the invitation is to know how it operates in us. We don't deny that we feel it, but we do get to make a choice of what we're going to follow. We get to choose. And what if, little by little, you start taking daring risks to choose something that you can't find in your internal shouldapedia? right? We all have, I mean, that's how I envision all of this conditioning, is just volumes and volumes within me of shouldapedia, where I start to take an action and I pause and I go, wait, let me see what I should do. Oh, that, okay. What if you stopped referencing the shouldapedia? What if you just said, this is what's alive in me? And you be that. No matter what anybody thinks. My friend Reverend Jeff Anderson used to say, when people would say, I'm losing my mind, he would immediately, you say that like it's a bad thing. Right? What if we were willing to lose our human minds in order to access divine mind? Ernest Holmes taught the same principle that frees us, enslaves us. And what he's talking about is the power of creative thinking. Right? Depends on how we use it. If I keep thinking the same old thoughts over and over again, I get the same old stuff over and over again. The problem is we can fool ourselves, because I can actually create different physical experiences of the same thought. So I think I'm doing it differently, but I'm not. If I get underneath to the core, there's 101 ways to live in poverty or more. But I think I'm not living in poverty anymore, because now I've created a different version of poverty. Still poverty. Lack of friends, lack of connection, lack of sense of self. All of that is poverty. It's not just about money. Right? So are we willing to pull out that taproot? Those of you that have been with me for a while have heard this before. You'll probably hear it again. We are a new thought teaching. I dare you to have one. I dare you. Have a new thought already. The worst thing that happens is you create a new experience for yourself. Here's the good news. If you don't like it, oh, wait, have another new thought. Have another new thought. We are infinite possibility in form. I promise you, with every fiber of my being, you will not run out of new thoughts. Just keep having them. Just keep having them. Let yourself play in the realm of possibility. Let yourself be a perpetual 3-year-old. Why? What else is here? How come? How did it get that way? And then listen. Because you know how that 3-year-old will just tap, 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 tap until you pay attention? Listen to that tapping. God, creator, divinity, one mind, whatever you call it. It's tapping. It has something to tell you. Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to be more than you can even imagine yourself to be? Are you willing to be an intentional, one of a kind, never to be repeated expression of divinity? Let's take this into prayer. Such joy fills my heart, my mind, every cell in my being, to remember, to recollect, to recognize, to know again the truth that there is only one. One infinite, ever-present allness. That it is perfect intelligence. It is perfect love. It is perfect peace. It is life itself. It is power. And so there's nothing for me to seek, knowing that I am made out of it, by it. Logically, I must be it. So there's nothing to seek. I already am what I seek. And so I speak my word, recognizing it as the word of the infinite speaking through this physical being that I call me. Claiming, affirming, laying the authority of the infinite as my agency, standing on it, standing in it, standing as it, to be all that I came here to be. To release the limitations of my human conditioning, to release the limitations of this physical remembering, and to allow the remembering of the one body. To allow the recall of the infinite, to allow the curiosity of infinite possibility to be my go-to, to be that place I live from, and to know that for every question I ask, the answer is in the question. Fully present. So grateful. So grateful for these teachings. So grateful for the truth of oneness. So grateful for this infinite creator that simply gives of itself to itself. That in its eternality and in its infinity, it never runs out. Never exhausts itself. 100% dependable. Hallelujah. And so knowing how it works, I know that the word spoken is the word fulfilled. And so I don't need to depend on appearances. I don't need to depend on the physical realm to validate. I simply know in the presence of my being it is done. And as I know, I let go. And I live in the faith that it's already done. So I invite you to make this your own. To make this prayer your prayer. Because there's only one of us here anyway. As we say together. And so it is. Let's take a